So last Friday we did integers. Who remembers what an integer is? Robert? No? It's opposite of numbers. Sydney? It's whole numbers. They're opposites. And what else? Whole numbers, they're opposites, and one other thing. No, negatives are their opposites. So it does include negatives. Zero. So integers, which we put in order on Friday, were whole numbers, their opposites, and zero. So today, we're going to do decimals. So a decimal says is a rational number. We'll get into what a rational number is a little bit later this week. But it's a rational number that represents part of a whole. So a decimal could be just a part of a whole number. It could be a whole number and a part of another one, but it's a part of a whole where the part is base 10. So everything is, you got tenths, hundredths, thousandths, right, for those place values. And all decimals can be pretty easily represented on number lines. So for this, if we got, 1.5 would be an example, negative 1.35, it doesn't have to be 1, it could be negative 7.92 or something like that, right? So we're including positives and negatives with this. All right, so if we look at this, we'll do set 1 first. That's what we did on Friday. So point A is located at negative 5 right here. There's point A. Point B, negative 3. There's point B. C is at positive 1. D, positive 3. Question A there asks just about set 1. It says, what term can you use to describe those numbers? What are those numbers called? Integers. Yeah, so those are integers. All right, go ahead on your papers, try doing set 2. E, F, G, and H. So E is 2.5. Where should 2.5 be? Between the 2 and the 3. Directly between the 2 and the 3, right? 0.5 is half. So it should be right there in the middle. There's where E goes. All right, F is 3.75. Where should that go? Well, first off, between which two numbers? It should be between 3 and 4. Which one is it closer to? 4. So that's kind of the important part with the decimals is you have to pay attention to which number it's closer to when you're putting them on the number lines. All right, so G then is negative 1.5. It gets maybe a little bit trickier with the negatives. So what two numbers is negative 1.5 in between? Negative 1 and negative 2. It's just like positives, but it's going the opposite direction. So that's point G. Point H, negative 3.5. Negative 3 and negative 4. All right, so you just have to pay attention, especially with the negatives, which side of the numbers or which two numbers it's in between really is the easiest way to figure those out. Okay? All right, so it's asking what you noticed about G and H and how is it different than plotting points E and F. I'm not going to write that up here, but it's kind of like I was saying. With E, when it was 0.5, it's to the right of the number, isn't it? F, it was to the right of a number. With G and H, when it's the negatives, you're going to the left of that number. If you focus on the two that it's in between, that's sometimes a little easier to figure out where it should go then. Okay? Any questions on that? And this is another thing, it shouldn't be too bad as long as we're careful on it. All right, so when we do this, we'll look at number 1 here. I'll do that one up here, so just kind of pay attention. It's just like before. When we look at it, if I got 0, I got 1, what's in between 0 and 1? Half, or with a decimal, how we say half? 0.5. So then after the 1, that'd be 1.5, right? After the 2, 2.5. Yeah? All right, so when we do point A, 4.2, that's past the 4. It's going to be a little bit closer to the 4 than it would be to the 0.5, right? So there would be our point A. B is 1.6. 1.6, just a little bit past 1.5. C, a little bit trickier. It's 1.05. Is that the same as 1.5? No. Those place values are important, okay? So that puts it pretty close to 1. And then D is 0.8. That's between the 0 and the 1. Pretty close to 1, but not quite. Okay? Everybody kind of follow? Y'all try number 2 with the negatives. Well, some of them are negative. Not all. All right, Sydney, come do point A. Negative 3.5. 3.5 is between 3 and 4, so negative 3.5 needs to be between negative 3 and negative 4. Lacey, point B, negative 4.2. Label it with a B. .2 between 4 and 5, so 2 between negative 4 and 4. Jacob is at 1.1. Label it with a C. Yeah, a little bit past 1 to the right because that's positive. Negative 2.7. Point D. Between negative 2 and negative 3, a little bit closer to negative 3. And Ford, we're on E, 1.9. Yep, between 1 and 2, closer to 2. This ain't that bad, is it? With the negatives, you just got to remember you're going the opposite way. Focus on what two numbers it's in between. Any questions on those? All right, flip that sheet over then. Before we get to that, place values are important when you're doing this, okay? So if you look at these 5 numbers, I've had people tell me in the past that these are in order from least to greatest. All right, the reason they say that is we got 0.1, we got 6, 7, 9, 12. Everybody see what I'm saying though, right? That's not right though, is it? So the place values matter. What you want to do, or what you can do, is make it so they all would have the same amount of place values. That sometimes can be helpful when you're comparing them. So if we look at these numbers, this one here has 3 place values. So we can just fill in zeros to make them all the same, right? Then when we look at it, now you can look at it as, oh, what number is after the decimal, right? If the whole numbers were different, you would look at those first. You just kind of start on the left, work your way to the right as you look at it. So for our lowest, if we start on the left, all these are the same. That doesn't help. If we're going from least to greatest, we look at these. These middle 3 numbers are all zeros. So we go to the next digit. I got a 6, a 0, and a 9. Well, 0 is the lowest, isn't it? So that means this one's going to go first. This one's my least. I got a 6 and a 9. Whoops. The 6 would come before the 9. So now we go back to where we were. We're looking at that first place value, right? Or the second one, first one after the decimal. We got a 1 and a 1. So when we compare it with the next digit, I got a 0 and a 2. So 0 is lower than 2, and there would be my correct order. Everybody see how that works? Just make sure you pay attention to those place values. All right, we need to put those in order from least to greatest. So here's how this works. I'll do number 3, y'all will do number 4. When we look at number 3, or any of these, first thing, negative numbers are less than positive numbers. So if you're going from least to greatest, you want to get your negative numbers first. So I got negative 6, negative 3.9. Which one's lower? Negative 6. It's farther to the left on the number line. So we got negative 6, negative 3.9. Then we can look at our positive numbers. I got 4, 4.6, and 16. Hopefully, obviously, but 16 is the highest one, right? So 16 is going to be my greatest. Which one's lower, 4 or 4.6? 4. So 4 comes next, then we got the 4.6, then we got the 16. Okay? Y'all do number 4. Robert, what'd you get?
-7, -4.5, 1.07, 1.77, 1.77, and 17.
That's correct. Okay? Any questions on that? No? Bless you. All right, we also have to be able to compare with the inequality signs. Everybody remember how those work from Friday? If not, you still got your sheet there from Friday as well, right? So go ahead, try 5 and 6 here. For number 5, it can be less than, greater than, or equal to. Mason, A, what'd you get?
I got less than.
Less than is correct. On a number line, negative 5.05 would be between negative 5 and negative 6, so it's a little bit farther to the left. That makes it less. B, Gray? Nope. Kyle? Greater than. Those are both positive. They're both 3 is the whole number. 5 is higher than 2, so that's going to make it greater. All right, C. Sarah E. Less than is correct. Negative 1 is going to be farther left. Judah, D. Equal to. It is very rare that we get equal to, but that's one of those examples where you can. If something's 0.0 with nothing else to it, that's the same as just a whole number. Okay? All right, then we got 3 students were asked to write a decimal less than negative 3.5. Who was correct? Eddie, Abe, or Jax? Chastity?
Jack.
Nope. Jeremiah? Eddie is correct. One of the things they say you can do with this, that actually goes pretty quickly. If you don't worry about it being perfect, you can always make a number line. If I have negative 3, and let's go negative 4, because all of those numbers are between negative 3 and negative 4. Negative 3.5 would be exactly halfway, so that's Abe's. That's also what we were looking for, is negative 3.5, right? Abe gave us exactly the number. Jack's, that's a lot closer to 3, isn't it? 3.05 is closer to 3 than it is to 4, so negative 3.05 needs to be closer to negative 3. Eddie, 3.6 is going to be closer to 4. And when we think of number lines, farther left, those are the lower numbers. Okay? Any questions on that? It's a little bit more difficult, a little bit more confusing than with the whole numbers. It still shouldn't be too bad, and it's one of those, once you get it, it's not bad at all. Mason, you got a question?
Will you ever do it to where one of them would, all of them would be wrong?
No, because it asked you to determine which one was correct.